The night sky above the alien city was painted with 2 moons, glowing pale silver across the endless towers of stone and metal. The air felt heavy, carrying whispers of old traditions and rules no one dared to break. Among those traditions was the cruel binding, a ceremony that sealed a girl's life before she could even dream of freedom. She stood at the balcony of her chamber, her heart sinking as drums echoed from far below. Her name was Liara, born into a family of status but cursed with a fate she could not escape. Tomorrow she would be bound to Lord Veyron, a powerful alien noble known for his coldness. No one spoke of love in her world. They spoke only of alliances, power, and duty. To her people, marriage was not about heart. It was about survival of houses. Liara had learned since childhood to bow her head, to remain silent, to accept her place. Yet every night she dreamed of something different. She dreamed of holding someone's hand not because of duty, but because of choice. She dreamed of a voice whispering comfort, not commands. She dreamed of love, though in her world love was a forbidden word. The chamber door creaked open. Her mother entered, dressed in dark ceremonial robes. Her eyes were stern, her voice sharp. "Do not resist tomorrow, Liara. You carry the honor of our bloodline." Liara wanted to cry, but she only nodded. The words stabbed her deeper than any blade. Her honor was nothing but a chain wrapped around her soul. That night she could not sleep. The sound of drums grew louder. The city prepared for the grand binding. The nobles would gather, the banners would rise, and she would walk in silence like a lamb offered to a wolf. The next morning, the hall of stone was filled with torches and chanting voices. Liara walked slowly, her steps heavy, her long silver dress dragging across the cold floor. Around her stood the crowd of nobles and guards. Their faces showed no kindness, only expectation. At the center stood Lord Veyron, tall and proud. His eyes were sharp like blades. His face showed no smile, only possession. To him, Liara was not a bride. She was property. As she stood before him, her heart screamed in silence. She wanted to run, but her legs betrayed her. She wanted to speak, but her mouth stayed shut. The priest raised his staff, his deep voice echoing, "By the law of the ancients, this girl shall be bound to Lord Veyron. Her life, her heart, her body, her soul all belong to him." The crowd cheered, yet Liara's soul broke further with every word. She lowered her head, her silver hair hiding her tears, and then, from the far side of the hall, a different sound cut through the chants. It was not the voice of an alien, it was the voice of a human. He stood among the crowd, not dressed in noble robes but in simple travel clothes. His face was plain compared to the alien lords, but his eyes carried fire. Unlike the others, he was not cheering. He was watching her, not like a man watching property, but like a man watching a prisoner. Liara felt her heart skip. For the first time in her life, someone looked at her as if she mattered. The human's gaze was strange. It carried anger, pity, and something else she had never seen before. Hope. Lord Veyron noticed his stare and narrowed his eyes. Guards moved closer to the human, but the stranger did not lower his gaze. He stood tall, defiant, as if daring the entire hall. Liara could not understand why. She did not even know his name. Yet in that moment her world shifted. The chains around her heart trembled, and she felt a spark of courage she had never known. The priest's voice boomed again. "The bond shall be sealed." He lifted the staff higher, but Liara's eyes were no longer on the priest. They were locked on the human. She did not know what would happen next, but deep inside she knew something had already changed. For the first time in her life, she felt that her cold promise might not be the end, but the beginning of something greater. The drums beat louder, the torches flared, and the hall held its breath. The ceremony continued, but so did the human's gaze, a gaze that promised one thing. Her fate was not sealed yet. The hall of stone was thick with silence after the priest's words. Torches flickered against the carved walls, shadows stretching like chains across the floor. Liara lowered her head as if surrendering to her fate, but her heart beat faster. She could still feel the human's eyes on her, Watching, questioning, burning, Lord Veyron stepped forward, his hand heavy on the hilt of his ceremonial blade. His voice rang like iron. "Bind her now, she belongs to me." The crowd nodded in approval, eager to see the tradition carried out. Nobles whispered, guards tightened their stance, and Liara's last dream of freedom began to crumble. And then, the voice came, louder than before, echoing across the chamber. "No." Everyone turned, shock rippling like fire. The human stepped out from the crowd. His clothes were plain, his boots dusty, his hair was unkempt, and yet his presence struck like thunder. He had no power, no wealth, no title, but his words carried something no one dared to speak. Defiance. "You will not take her," the human said. His accent was strange compared to the flowing alien tongue, his voice raw, his jaw set like stone. Guards instantly surrounded him, their weapons raised. The nobles laughed, mocking his foolishness. "A human dares interrupt the binding?" they jeered. Liara's breath caught in her throat. No one ever spoke against the law. No one ever challenged Lord Veyron. Yet here stood a man with nothing, daring to break centuries of silence. Lord Veyron narrowed his eyes. Stepping down from the altar, his cloak dragged across the floor as he walked toward the human towering above him. "You speak out of place," he growled, his voice low, dangerous. "Do you think your kind has a say in our traditions?" The human did not move. He did not bow. He met Veyron's glare without fear. "I think no tradition has the right to kill someone's heart." His words were simple, but they cut deeper than blades. Gasps filled the hall. The nobles were outraged. The priest struck his staff against the floor. "Silence him," he roared. Two guards rushed forward, grabbing the human by his arms. But even then he did not look away. His eyes stayed on Liara, and his voice rang out. "You are not property. You are not a chain to be owned. You are more than this." Liara's chest tightened. Her hands trembled. For the first time in her life, someone said what she had always begged to hear in silence. The guards forced him down to his knees. The crowd jeered. But Lord Veyron raised his hand, commanding silence. He looked at the human with a cruel smile. "Tell me, human," he said, "why risk your life for her? She is nothing but a cold promise, a tool of survival. Do you think she will thank you?" The hall laughed again, cruel and sharp. But the human's answer was steady, his voice calm like fire hidden in coals. "Because she deserves a choice, and because I could not watch her eyes die." The crowd's laughter faltered, murmurs rippled through the nobles. They had never heard such words. Words of love, words of defiance, words they believed too weak to matter. Liara's heart pounded. She had been raised to keep silent, to never resist. But now, watching him bleed defiance into the hall, something stirred inside her. She felt her own silence cracking. Lord Veyron stepped closer, his shadow falling over the kneeling man. His blade gleamed as he drew it. "You will regret this insult," he hissed. The human looked up at him without blinking, his voice sharp as steel. "Better I die speaking truth than live watching cruelty." The hall grew colder. The torches hissed. The priest hesitated, sensing the moment was turning strange. Liara's lips parted, but no words came. Fear chained her throat, yet her heart screamed for her to act. Lord Veyron raised his blade, the edge flashing under the firelight. The guards held the human down, but still he did not bow his head. He looked only at Liara, his eyes fierce, his gaze unbroken, and for the first time she saw it clearly. This was not madness. This was strength. Not the strength of weapons or titles, but the strength of a heart that refused to obey chains. The hall waited for blood. The crowd leaned forward. The priest's staff shook in his hand, and Liara's world narrowed to one moment. The human had defied the law, defied the Lord, defied the chains. And though she had no words yet, her heart whispered a promise of its own. This man, this stranger, had given her something no one else had ever dared. He had given her hope. The torches flared, the blade rose higher, and the fate of both hung in the balance. The blade hovered above the human's neck. Torches spat and hissed as if the fire itself feared what was about to happen. The crowd leaned forward, their eyes hungry. This was what tradition demanded, punishment for defiance. But Lord Veyron did not strike at once. His lips curved into a slow, cruel smile. He lowered the blade just slightly, circling the human as a predator circles prey. "You are bold, human," he said, his voice echoing across the chamber. "But boldness means nothing when faced with law." The priest lifted his staff again, striking it against the floor. "The ceremony must continue. Do not let this creature poison the sacred ritual." His words boomed with authority, yet cracks of unease ran through the hall. Liara stood frozen at the altar, her hands trembling at her sides. Every instinct told her to stay silent, to obey, to surrender to her fate. That was what her people demanded. That was what she had been raised for, and yet the human's words echoed in her chest like a secret flame. "You are not property. You are more than this." Lord Veyron turned to the crowd, his cloak swirling around him. "Behold the weakness of humans," he shouted. "They do not understand order. They speak of choice, of love, of freedom. But what are those against the will of the ancients? Against the survival of our bloodlines?" The nobles roared in agreement, pounding their staffs against the floor. Their voices thundered through the stone walls. "Tradition! Law! Order!" The hall shook with their cries, and Liara's heart shrank beneath the weight of it. She wanted to scream, to fight, but the voices of her people pressed down on her like chains. Her silence became her prison once again. The guards pulled the human to his feet. His arms bound, they shoved him toward the altar, forcing him to kneel beside Liara. The crowd laughed. "Let him witness the binding," they mocked. "Let him see his foolishness." Lord Veyron raised his hand, and the hall quieted. His eyes gleamed with cruel amusement. "You will watch her belong to me," he told the human, "and then, if you live long enough, you will carry this shame forever." But the human did not lower his gaze. His head lifted, his voice steady. "No matter what chains you place, her heart is not yours, and you will never break what I have seen in her eyes." Liara's breath caught. Her eyes, the very thing she tried to hide. The sorrow, the fear, the desperate hope. He had seen it. He had spoken it aloud before an entire hall. Gasps ran through the nobles for an alien woman to have her heart spoken of. To be seen as more than property. It was dangerous. It was blasphemy. The priest struck the floor again. Desperate now. "Enough. Begin the sealing." His voice cracked as though even he feared the words lingering in the air. Liara's knees weakened. Her chains were not iron, yet they were stronger than steel. They were the laws carved into every wall, whispered into every cradle. They were the voices of generations telling her she was nothing more than a promise. But when she looked at the human, bound and kneeling, she saw something different. His body was held down, but his spirit was free. His words were louder than the entire hall. "Choice is stronger than chains," he whispered, low enough for her alone. Her lips parted, her heart trembled. Could she believe him? Could she break what no one else had ever dared to break? Lord Veyron stepped forward, his hand reaching for her arm. His touch was cold, heavy, final. The priest raised his staff one last time. The crowd's voices began to chant the ancient words, but Liara felt a storm inside her. Every chain in her soul rattled as if on the edge of breaking. The weight of her ancestors pressed her down, and yet the fire of one man's defiance lifted her up. The hall roared with tradition, but her heart whispered rebellion. Her voice rose, trembling. "Stop!" The chanting faltered. The torches flickered. Every head turned toward her. Silence crashed through the chamber. Her chest heaved, her knees shook, but she spoke again louder. I am not a thing to be owned," gasps echoed. The nobles cried out in outrage. The priest's staff slipped in his hand. Lord Veyron froze, his grip tightening like claws. His voice thundered, "You dare defy the law?" Liara's heart raced, her fear burned, but she felt the human's eyes on her. Steady, strong, unbroken. And for the first time in her life, she did not bow her head. "I dare," she whispered. The crowd erupted in fury. Guards surged forward, nobles screamed. The hall was a storm of voices. But Liara's own voice had been spoken, and no power in the galaxy could take it back. Lord Veyron's face twisted with rage. His blade gleamed once more, and the human's body tensed, ready to fight though his arms were bound. Tradition had been challenged, a chain had cracked, and the world itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would shatter next. The chamber exploded into chaos. Nobles screamed in outrage, guards stormed forward, and the priest struck his staff desperately against the floor, shouting for order. But order was gone, broken by one trembling voice and one defiant stranger. Liara's words still echoed through the hall. "I am not a thing to be owned." They burned through the walls, through the chains of tradition, and through the heart of every alien present. None dared to believe what they had heard. Lord Veyron's face twisted into fury. His blade hissed as it cut the air. "Seize them both," he roared. His voice shook the very pillars. Guards closed in, their weapons gleaming under the torchlight. The human, still bound at the wrists, shoved himself to his feet. His eyes locked on Liara, sharp and unyielding. "Do you want to stay here?" He shouted over the roar. His words cut straight to her soul. Her heart pounded, her chest heaved, and then she shook her head. Her voice cracked but clear. No. That one word was all he needed. With a sudden twist, the human swung his arms. Slamming into one guard's chest, the alien stumbled back, and the human grabbed the guard's fallen blade. Sparks flashed as steel met stone, gasps echoed. Nobles scrambled toward the exits. The hall became a storm of panic. Liara felt a hand grab her wrist, his hand. Strong and warm even in the madness, he pulled her behind him. Pushing through the wall of guards, "Stop them!" Veyron thundered. His cloak swirled as he stepped down from the altar. His rage burning like fire. Liara stumbled as they ran, her long ceremonial dress dragging against the floor. The human cut through the ropes binding his wrists with the stolen blade. His movements were quick, sharp, desperate. He had no armor, no training like the alien soldiers, but his will was sharper than any weapon. They burst through the side doors of the hall, torches flickering as they entered the cold corridors. Shouts echoed behind them, guards chasing close. The stone passage twisted like a maze, and Liara's breath came fast. "We'll never make it," she cried. "Yes, we will," the human answered, his voice fierce. "But only if you don't stop." Her legs burned. Her chest ached. She had never run like this, never fought against the fate carved for her, but his hand never let go, and she felt herself pulled forward step after step. The walls shook as alarms rang through the palace. Drums pounded outside, summoning the city's watch. Tradition itself was rising to crush them. They darted into a narrow passage lit only by flickering blue light. The human pressed her against the wall, holding his breath as guards rushed past the other end. His chest rose and fell against hers, his eyes sharp. "Do you trust me?" he whispered. Liara's lips trembled. She had no reason to trust him. He was a stranger, a human in a world that despised weakness. Yet when she looked into his eyes, she saw no cruelty, no hunger for power, only fire. She nodded. "Yes." He smiled faintly, a brief flicker of warmth in the storm. "Then we'll make it out." They slipped through a hidden archway, emerging into the cold night air. The city stretched out before them, towers rising like jagged teeth against the twin moons. Streets buzzed with alarm bells, guards flooding every corner. The entire city seemed to turn against them. Liara shivered, her ceremonial dress torn, her bare feet bleeding from the rough stones. "They'll catch us," she whispered. Her voice carried the weight of centuries of fear. The human shook his head, gripping her hand tighter. "Not if we keep moving." They ran through narrow alleys, their shadows long under the pale moonlight. Behind them horns blared, voices shouted. The city was alive with the hunt. At one corner, a group of guards spotted them. Blades gleamed as they rushed forward. The human shoved Liara behind a broken cart. He raised his stolen weapon, his stance firm though his arm trembled from exhaustion. The clash was brutal. Sparks flew as steel clashed against alien metal. The human fought with raw desperation, every strike fueled not by skill but by determination. He ducked under one guard's blade, drove his own into another's chest, kicked the third aside. His breath came ragged. Sweat stung his eyes, but he did not fall. Liara watched with wide eyes. Her heart screamed for him. She had never seen such madness, someone fighting not for power, not for wealth, but for her. When the last guard fell, the human staggered, blood on his arm. His chest heaved as he turned to her. "We don't have much time," he said. His voice cracked but steady. They pressed on, weaving through the city like shadows, but every step forward seemed to echo louder. The horns, the drums, the cries. Tradition itself was chasing them. Finally, they reached the outer walls, towering and sharp under the moons. The gates were locked, guarded by dozens of soldiers. Liara's heart sank. "There's no way through," she whispered. The human's jaw tightened. His eyes scanned the walls, sharp, searching. At last he spotted a section where the stone had cracked, a place half forgotten. "There!" He pointed. We climb. Liara's breath caught. The wall was massive, the climb nearly impossible. But when she looked at him, she saw no fear, only resolve, and for the first time, she felt the same fire inside herself. Together they moved toward the broken wall. Every step a battle, every breath a promise. Behind them the shouts grew closer. Lord Veyron himself now leading the pursuit. His voice like thunder across the city. The chase had only just begun. The broken wall loomed high above them, jagged stones glinting under the twin moons. The crack was narrow, the climb almost impossible. But it was their only chance behind them. The city roared like a beast awakened, horns blaring, guards shouting. Lord Veyron's fury carrying over the rooftops. Liara pressed her hands against the rough stone. Her palms stinging, her breath came sharp. But the human's voice reached her like a steady flame. Climb, don't stop. I'll be right behind you. She swallowed her fear and began to climb. Her ceremonial dress tore further. Her knees scraped against the stone, yet she pushed upward. Each step upward felt like breaking a piece of the chains that bound her. Below, the human followed, his hands gripping the cracks with raw strength. His arm still bled from the fight in the alley. But he refused to slow. His eyes stayed sharp, his jaw set. Every sound of pursuit only drove him higher. Shadows flickered across the streets below. Dozens of guards stormed toward the wall. Their torches burned bright. Their weapons gleamed. They're climbing, one shouted. Arrows whistled into the night, striking the stones inches from Liara's feet. She gasped, clutching tighter, her body trembling. Don't look down, the human called. His voice was firm, unshaken. Keep moving. You're stronger than you think. Her chest burned, but his words lit a fire inside her. She pushed harder, fingers clawing at the rough stone, until at last she pulled herself over the top. She fell to her knees, gasping, the cold night wind rushing against her face. The human reached her a moment later. He pulled himself up with one final heave. Landing beside her, blood streaked his arm. Sweat glistened on his face, yet his eyes burned with determination. Below, Lord Veyron had arrived. His cloak snapped in the wind. His voice thundered like a storm. Do not let them escape. Arrows flew once more. Guards rushed for the gates. The chase was far from over. The human grabbed Liara's hand, pulling her across the outer ridge. The ground beyond the wall stretched into shadowed plains. Dry grass swaying in the cold wind. A narrow path led into the blackness. Twisting between jagged rocks they ran, feet pounding against the earth, hearts racing. The wind carried the sound of drums and horns behind them. The city would not rest until they were caught. Liara stumbled, her legs heavy. Her breath tore from her throat. I can't, she whispered, but the human pulled her up. His hand firm, his voice like fire. Yes, you can. Don't let them take you back. Not after this, something inside her shifted. She was no longer just a girl being dragged by fate. She was running beside him step for step. The fear was still there. But so was something new, strength. They darted into the shadowed path between the rocks. The moonlight barely touched the ground. Darkness swallowed them, yet the human pressed on, guiding her through the twisting maze, his senses sharp, his ears catching every sound behind them. The guards' footsteps echoed closer. Torches flared at the mouth of the path. Voices rising, the hunters were closing in. Liara's heart pounded. She glanced at the human. Why are you doing this? She asked. Her voice broke between breaths. Why risk your life for me? He didn't look back. His words came steady. Because no one should live in chains, and because when I saw your eyes, I knew you were already dying inside. I couldn't let that be the end. Her chest tightened. His words struck deeper than any blade. For so long, she had believed she was nothing but a promise to be traded. Yet here was a man who saw her, not as property, not as duty, but as someone worth saving. The path twisted downward, opening into a shallow ravine. Rocks tumbled beneath their feet. The ground shook as guards spilled into the shadows behind them. There. Don't let them get away. The human pulled Liara close, dragging her behind a fallen boulder. They crouched low as torches flickered past. Their breaths came fast, hearts pounding so loud they feared the guards would hear. When the voices faded, the human whispered, We move again. Stay quiet. They crept through the darkness. Every sound magnified, the rustle of grass, the crunch of stones, the distant thunder of drums. Shadows wrapped around them, but with each step forward, Liara felt herself breaking further away from her old life. And then, just as hope flickered, a shadow blocked their path. Lord Veyron. He stood tall, his blade glowing faint under the moonlight. His cloak rippled in the night wind. Behind him, a dozen guards fanned out. Their torches burned like a circle of fire. "You cannot run from tradition," Veyron's voice rumbled. His eyes burned with fury. "She belongs to me. And you, human, will die for your defiance." Liara's breath caught, her body trembled, her strength faltered. But the human stepped in front of her, his blade raised, his stance unbroken. "We're not running anymore," he said. His voice cut the night like steel. The guards tightened their circle. The torches closed in. Shadows danced across the rocks. The night held its breath. The chase had ended. But the real fight was only beginning. The circle of fire burned around them. Torches flickered in the night wind, shadows stretching tall across the jagged rocks. Liara stood frozen, her heart hammering against her ribs. The human stood in front of her, blade raised, his figure small compared to the towering alien guards. Lord Veyron stepped forward. His blade gleamed under the twin moons. His voice carried across the ravine like thunder. "You cannot escape me, girl. You are mine by law, by blood, by the will of our ancestors." His eyes flicked to the human filled with venom. "And you, I will make an example of you, so that no one dares defy tradition again." The guards closed in, their armor clinking, their weapons flashing, but the human did not flinch. His voice rang sharp. "She is not yours. She will never be yours." The crowd of soldiers jeered. Mocking his words, their laughter echoed through the rocks. Liara's chest tightened, fear gripping her throat. Yet in the middle of the storm, the human stood tall, a single flame against the darkness. Lord Veyron raised his blade, pointing it directly at Liara. "Tell me, girl," he snarled, "do you truly wish to throw away centuries of honor for this weak creature?" His voice dripped with scorn. "Speak now, and I will forgive your moment of rebellion, Neil, and your life will be safe." Liara's body trembled, her mind screamed with doubt. All her life she had been taught to obey, to bow, to serve. The voices of her ancestors echoed inside her head. Honor the law, respect tradition, sacrifice for the bloodline. But then she remembered the human's words, spoken when all others had mocked her. "You are not property. You are more than this." She looked at him now, bruised, bleeding yet unbroken. His eyes met hers, steady and strong, and in that gaze, she saw something she had never known before. Choice. Her lips parted, her voice weak at first but growing with each word. I will not go back to chains. I will not kneel." Gasps erupted from the soldiers. Fury flashed across Veyron's face. "You dare defy me again?" he roared. His blade hissed through the air as he stepped closer. The human shifted, placing himself fully between her and the Lord. His blade raised, though his hands shook from exhaustion. "If you want her," he growled. "You'll have to kill me first," Veyron sneered. His laughter was cold, cruel. "That can be arranged." The clash was sudden. Steel met steel, sparks showered the rocks. The human staggered under the weight of Veyron's strikes, each blow heavier, sharper, faster. Yet still he fought, his arms burned, his wounds bled. But he refused to fall. Liara watched, her heart tearing with every strike. The guards shouted, cheering their lord. The sound drowned out her thoughts, until all she could hear was the ringing of blades and the pounding of her heart. The human's blade locked against Veyron's. Their faces inches apart, Veyron sneered. "You are nothing, human." Weakness dressed as courage, but the human's voice came back sharp. "If courage means standing for what's right, then I will gladly die weak." He shoved with all his strength, forcing Veyron back a step. The guards roared in anger, the fight raged on, blades flashing under the moons, and then, in the middle of the chaos, Liara felt something inside her break free. She could no longer stand silent. She could no longer watch. She stepped forward, her voice ringing out across the circle. "I choose him." The guards froze, their jeers dying in their throats. Veyron's strike faltered. His eyes widened in fury. "What did you say?" Liara's chest heaved, her voice cracked. But she did not waver. "I choose him. Not you, not the law, not the chains. I choose him. And my heart is mine." Her words struck the night like lightning. Silence fell. Even the guards dared not speak. The priest, who had followed in the distance, dropped his staff in shock. The human turned, his chest rising and falling. His eyes burned as he looked at her, and in that moment, strength flooded his body once more. Lord Veyron snarled, rage twisting his face. "Your choice means nothing," he bellowed. His blade rose high, ready to strike them both down. But the human moved faster than the guards expected. His blade cut through the air, meeting Veyron's in a shower of sparks. Their clash shook the ground. Liara's voice rang out once more, stronger now. "You will not own me." Her cry filled the ravine, breaking the silence of centuries. For the first time, tradition itself trembled. The battle was not over, but the choice had been made, and in that choice, their fate and the fate of a broken law would be decided. The ravine shook with the clash of steel. Sparks leapt into the night as Lord Veyron pressed his attack. His strikes were merciless, each one meant to kill. The human's arms burned, his wounds bled, yet still he stood between Liara and death. The circle of guards roared for their lord. Their torches flickered like fire hungry for blood. Liara's heart pounded, her throat tight. Every instinct told her to hide, to stay silent. But silence was gone from her. She had spoken, she had chosen. The human staggered under a heavy blow, his blade slipped, and Veyron's strike cut across his shoulder. Blood splattered the rocks. He gritted his teeth, refusing to fall. His voice came hoarse but fierce. "You will never take her." Veyron's laughter was cruel, echoing off the stone. "You are already broken. Human, you cannot win. My strength is the strength of tradition, of law, of power. And you are nothing but a fool with a blade." But then, something shifted. The guards' jeers faltered. Their eyes flicked to Liara, who stood with her head high. Her silver hair glowing under the moons, her voice rang out. Steady, unshaken. "No, he is not nothing. He is everything you are not. He fights for choice, for freedom, for love, and I choose him." The words cracked through the night like thunder. Some guards lowered their torches. Their eyes uncertain, the priest trembled, his lips muttering prayers. Even tradition itself seemed to shake. Veyron roared in fury. His blade swung down in a final killing strike. The human caught it with the last of his strength. Their swords locked, faces inches apart. Sweat and blood streaked the human's skin, but his eyes blazed. "You think strength is power," he growled. "But real strength is sacrifice." With a cry, he twisted his blade. Shoving Veyron off balance, the Lord stumbled, his cloak tangling at his feet. And in that heartbeat of weakness, the human struck. His blade pierced Veyron's chest. The guards gasped, the torches flickered. The air went still. Veyron staggered back. Disbelief frozen on his face, his blade slipped from his hand, clattering against the stones. His voice rasped in fury and shock. "This cannot be." Then he fell, his cloak spreading like shadow across the ground. Silence crashed over the ravine. The mighty lord of tradition lay defeated. The guards froze, torn between duty and fear. The priest clutched his staff, his voice shaking. "The binding is broken." The human swayed, his chest heaving. His body was weak. Every breath a struggle. Blood dripped from his wounds. But when he turned to Liara, his eyes still burned with life. "You're free now," he whispered. Liara ran to him, her hands catching his face. Tears streaked down her cheeks. "No," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Not just me, we are free. You gave me hope, you gave me heart. And I will never let you fall alone." The guards lowered their heads. Some dropped their weapons. The fire of tradition had been broken, not by armies, not by lords, but by the defiance of one human and the choice of one woman. The night passed, and with the first light of dawn, they left the city behind. The plain stretched before them wide and endless. The sky painted in gold and crimson. Liara walked beside him, her hand in his, her dress torn, her feet bloodied, yet her eyes glowed with something new. Freedom? He staggered with every step, his body weak, but her arm held him steady. For every moment she had been carried by his courage. Now she carried him with hers. At the crest of a hill they paused. The city of chains lay behind them, smoke curling into the sky. The rising sun bathed them in light. Warm and pure, Liara turned to him, her voice soft but clear. "I was doomed to a loveless fate," she said. "But you gave me hope, you gave me heart, and with you, I finally live," the human smiled. Faint but real, his voice barely above a whisper. "And with you I finally belong." They stood together at the edge of the world, the dawn rising on a new beginning. The chains of tradition lay broken, and the path ahead, though uncertain, was theirs to walk for the first time in her life. Liara's heart was not bound by law or fear, it beat freely, and with each beat, it whispered the same truth. Love had triumphed.